Hello, my name is Tim Hickey, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create a simple avatar using Blender 2.5, and I'm on a MacBook Pro. So here's the opening screen, and let's first create a plane for the avatar to move on. So hit N to bring up the properties pane and go to the scale, and let's make it say 40 and then tab 40 by 10 tab by 0.2. Oops, sorry, 40 by 10 by 0.2. Right, and now let's drop it down 4. So -4 in the Z direction, and hit A to deselect. So this is the plane that our avatar will be running on. Now let's create the avatar. It'll be a simple cube. Later I'll show how to create have a more interesting avatar parented to the cube and make the cube invisible. So the controls will move the cube, and the interesting avatar will be inside the cube, parented to it, and that's what people will see. But all the intersection and collision will be done with the cube. For right now, however, we're just going to use the cube, and let's make it a rigid body. So go over here, and in the properties pane, click on the physics button. Now we're working in the game engine, so we have to switch from Blender Render to Blender Game. That changes the menu options inside the physics pane. So let's create this as a dynamic object, which means it's under the influence of gravity, but it's not actually going to change its orientation very much. It won't tumble and roll as easily. And click on collision bounds, and we'll just use the regular box as the bounds because it is a box. For more complex shapes, you would use convex hull or triangle mesh, or a sphere if it's a sphere, cylinder, so on. But we can use box here. Right, and now let's hit P for play, and it should fall down to the floor. P, and it falls down. Great. Hit escape, and we're back. So what we've done is we've created a box and told Blender that it should be controlled or under the influence of gravity in the physics simulation. Now let's add some keyboard controllers. So move the mouse down here to this window, and let's select Logic Editor. So in here we'll have the Logic Editor. This is for adding properties to this particular object. We're not going to need any now, so let's hide it. Click on View, and Properties will toggle that away. Great. We can zoom in and zoom out using the middle mouse wheel here. So we'll zoom a little bit and change this size of this window. And if you do Shift and middle mouse button, you can pan the view around. So let's pan it. Right. So this is the sensor, controller, actuator model of programming. We're going to work with a keyboard sensor right now. And to use the keyboard sensor, the main thing you need to do is click here where it says key, and then it says press a key, so we'll press the up arrow, and it registers that by saying up arrow. It's nice to label, to give a title to this sensor, and we'll call it up arrow also. Over here, let's make an actuator now. So when we press the up arrow, we want it to move forward. So we'll use the Motion Actuator. You see there are lots of actuators. We'll get to many of these later. Motion Actuator. And you can change the location, move it in the X, Y, or Z direction, or change the rotation about any axis. We'll do this later. You can also apply a force, which is what we're going to do here, in the X, Y, or Z direction. And what are those? Well, here, if you look at the box, there's a blue arrow going up, a green arrow going to the right, and a red arrow facing towards us. And if we look down here, this is the key. Z is blue, Y is green, and X is red. So let's have the green say be forward. It's totally up to us. So that would mean in the Y direction, we're going to apply a force of 10 newtons. Hit return. And now we can just connect. Oh, let's change the name also. We're going to call this move forward. Great. Now we can connect the sensor just do a left mouse click here and drag the line over to this button, to this port here, and let go. And it has added for us an AND actuator, which is the default. We could have done it this way. We could have, let me get rid of it. We could have added the AND actuator directly and connected it. But since this is so commonly done, it has a shortcut. There we go. Oops. So now, once we have this, we can hit P for play. It drops down, and now if you hold the press and hold the up arrow, it moves forward. Let go, and it stops. So when we're pressing, let me hit Escape to go out. Do it again. P. So when you hold down the up arrow, this physics simulator applies a force of 10 newtons to the cube. And oops, if it goes off the edge, it just falls forever. Hit Escape. Let's do the same thing now for the back arrow, and then we'll do the turning with the left and right arrows. It's going to get very confusing to have all this detail out every time. So Blender allows you to shrink these by clicking on these little triangles, and that will shrink the box. You can later rescale it. That's why we give it a title, so we can tell what it was. And here we'll call this controller the go ahead. Okay, how about just forward? We'll call this one forward. Now let's do the same thing very quickly with the other one. So click on key, we'll click the down arrow, and we'll name this down arrow. We'll go over here and add a motion actuator, and here it's going to go in the negative direction, so minus 10 newtons, and we're going to call this go back, and we'll connect them here to here. Here we go. Oops, I'm having trouble making these connections. Here we go, and we're going to call this reverse. And let's try that now. Hit P for play. You can go forward, and you can go back. Forward and back. Excellent. Escape to go back. Now let's do the turning. So turning we'll use rotation, or we could use torque. I'll show you how they work. Alright, so let's do another sensor, keyboard sensor, and click on here, press the left arrow, and we'll call this one left arrow. That's the name of that sensor. And we'll add an actuator, motion actuator, and we'll call this one turn left. And here we're going to rotate about the z-axis just 1 degree as you hold it down. So what does that mean? The z-axis is this blue arrow. So rotating 1 degree means you spin the cube using the blue arrow as the axis, and it's going to spin, if you're looking down on it, it's going to go counterclockwise, 1 degree. So let's try that. We have to make the connections, of course. Let's do that. Connect. There we go. So if I hit P for play and I hold the left arrow, see, as I hold it, the longer I hold it, the more it spins. If I let go of it, it stops moving. That's why we're using rotation. And now if I use the forward button, notice it's going forward in its own local coordinate system. Right, so whatever is forward for the cube, when you press the up arrow, that's the direction it moves. Escape. If you didn't want that, you could go over here. Let me show you that. This is move forward. We could click here. This is the local or global coordinate selector. So if I click on it, so it's white, it's not black, meaning it's not selected. Then when I hit P for play and I rotate, now I go forward, it's going to go in that same global Y direction. But that really doesn't work well for an avatar, so let's get rid of that. Escape. So we'll click on it. We want local coordinates. P for play means when you turn, you want to be using your local coordinate system to say which way is forward. Escape. Great. So let's see. Let me hide this, and we named all those. We'll call this one left. And let's do one more. Add sensor, the keyboard sensor. Click on it, press the right arrow. We'll call this right arrow. and add actuator, motion, and for this one we're going to go -1 degrees. So -1, return, and connect them, and we're going to call this one, turn right, and we're going to call this controller right, and then we can shrink them all down because we know that they're going to work. There we go. And now we have our controller. So let me go full screen. Shift space with the mouse in the 3D window makes it full screen. And maybe I'll zoom out a little bit so you can see a little more. And then Shift and middle mouse button lets you pan the view. Great. So now if I hit P for play, I can press the right arrow and turn and have it come down here. And press the back arrow to slow it down. So I can come right up to the edge. Great. And then turn around, move forward. So now I can control my avatar. And I can move. Notice as I continue to hold it down, it speeds up. I'll show you that. So I turn around and I'll just hold it down. It applies a constant force, and therefore it gets faster and faster and faster until it goes right off the edge. Okay, escape and shift space. We go back to this mode. If we didn't want that, if we wanted to go a constant speed, we could have used linear velocity here and say go 10 meters per second. Or if we wanted just to go a distance, we could use a location. So go 0.1 meters every time you step on it. You can either use direct distance and angle, or you can use force and torque. Torque meaning you're applying a angular force, so the longer you hold the torque key down, the faster it spins. Or a linear velocity and angular velocity if you want to have a fixed velocity. And if you then use a linear velocity and let go, it'll coast and slow down. Okay, so this is our simple avatar, and let's zoom back in. Actually, let me just do view selected. Great, and zoom out a little bit. And now let's save this. Shift space. Let's save this in a simple avatar. So we'll go Save As. I'm going to go up to the desktop, and I'm going to create a new directory. Yes. And I'm going to call it Simple Avatar. Turn. And I'm going to click on it, so we go into there, and I'm going to call this one Simple Avatar dot blend, and click Save. And now we have created and saved our simple avatar. The last step usually is to come down here and open the text editor and make some comment about it. So I'll click here to make a new text data block. I'm going to call this credits.text. And down here I can say this is simple avatar, author Tim Hickey, date 9/23/2011, license public domain. You can do anything you want with this. And save it, and we're done. Okay, so you should go and try this now to create your own simple avatar. You don't have to use the arrow keys. You can use WSAD or any keys you want to have it move. Okay, have fun.